Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so, but yes, you know, World Barista Championship, very focused on espresso preparation and on signature beverages, which is what we're going to be looking at in a little while with the current World Barista Champion, Pete Licata.
The reigning World Barista Champion, he's over there, he's ready. He's getting ready to, do some. So let's talk about, this is about signature beverages, right? This is called Signature Beverage Deconstructed is the name of this segment. So the idea with a signature beverage, and this actually dates back to the early days of bartending. And in the early days of bartending, bartenders would develop a drink that was their signature, their creation, the thing that they were the most well known for. In coffee, we've borrowed this concept in the barista competitions and developed on it. So it's almost like a chef's signature dish or a bartender's signature cocktail. The barista too will develop a signature drink. This is one third of the barista competition and represents a large portion of what the barista is judged on. So it's probably one of the most, it is the creative part of the barista competition, right?
Yeah, that's right, and it's also a great opportunity for the barista to show something that they're interested in, tie the performance together, focus on the coffee, kind of use it any way that they want to. And I think it's a thing that the person that isn't a coffee person most gets, because it's that cocktail idea of putting a bit of your personality on the coffee.
Yes. And so Pete Licata is a long-time barista competitor, right?
That makes him sound very old, and he's not, because he's a very young man still. But Pete's been involved in barista competition in the WBC since 2004?
Five.
I knew it was close.
They were close.
But anyway, he's had to prepare over the years a number of these signature beverages. And so what we asked Pete to do today is to sort of walk us through developing a signature beverage, what the purpose of the signature beverage is, what a good, successful one in a barista competition would be like, how to construct it, and what the purpose is for.
So I kind of putting Pete on the spot a little bit here to do that as well, and just show us with some ingredients he may not necessarily have worked with before, to put a signature drink together and tell us he's thinking, he's thinking behind it. So
exactly right. So you ready, Pete?
Just about. Yeah, I think I need to grab some milk out of the back. I think I want to do something with some milk, have that as an option.
Okay, we've got some milk coming to you from,
all right, perfect.
From one of our sponsors.
Yes.
From actually right next door. But that's one of the challenges, right?
Yes.
Of international. We were talking about this with Matt and Stefanos earlier, which is one of the challenges of competing internationally at these competitions is that ingredients can be difficult. They can travel not so well. Usually you can't bring milk along with you when you travel.
Right,
and, other ingredients can be hard to come by. Do you have any stories of ingredient outages while traveling overseas?
Not overseas. I think everything that I did with WBC, I had pretty stable ingredients that I was using. But I will say, I mean, taking any sort of if you're using any sort of fresh fruit, fresh ingredient like that, the nature of that item is going to change depending on where it came from, how ripe it was picked when it came, when it was brought to the market, anything like that. So it can be very, very difficult. I will say that when I was preparing, some of the 2 times I got second place in the United States competition, I started to kind of, someone asked, like, oh, hey, you're going to be able to bring that to Tokyo or to Bern. And I'm just like, well, in 2008, I was using a cheese with it as a pairing.
Right.
And I was just like, I wouldn't be able to bring the cheese probably in. I wouldn't be able to fly it with me necessarily.
Right.
And so, I mean, you try, do some things you're not supposed to do to get things into the country, but overall, it was kind of like, we may have to reevaluate that if you go. Those times I didn't go, and so it never became an issue. But,
right. So what is a signature beverage to you? Can you tell me what your feeling and what the rules say about what a signature beverage should be?
A signature beverage to me should be, first and foremost, it should be delicious. It should be something that tastes really good. And we're going to work on making something that tastes really good here today. But beyond that, it really needs to be something that takes the espresso, takes the coffee that you're using with it, and elevates it, and brings out more of the coffee, and brings out a new experience with it that still gives justice to what that coffee is. So you don't want to just mask the flavor and just lose it all, right?
So, Pete, how important is the table settings and the things that you have for a signature drink? Because I've seen some very elaborate settings.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen some incredibly simple settings.
Yes.
Where do you sit on that one?
Well, for me, I do like to have a nice table setting. And I'm going to preface today with what I'm doing is actually, today I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do in competition, which is to be able to take multiple ingredients and multiple coffees and craft something for the people that I'm going to be making a drink for today. And so I don't have a table setting on there because it's going to start to take shape as I get people to make something and to start asking some questions and see what we want to do with it.
Okay, well that's probably a good time to get some people involved, and maybe you can go ahead and start preparing while we select a few judges from the audience. Who would like to be one of Pete Licata, World Barista Champion, Pete Licata's temporary judges for this event?
I think we've got somebody who's very keen here.
All right.
Fabrizio 2012 finalist.
Would you like to?
Second place, so please take a seat.
Who else? You both? Oh, very good. All right, one more from up here.
Awesome.
Very good.
So now, what normally happens in barista competition, the judges will sit here. But for the purposes of the audience seeing, we've moved the judges to the prep table, so we know we've made a mistake, and it's kind of on purpose, so don't shout at us.
Okay, so and these are, Pete, now you're going to work with ingredients that you've never worked with before today, is that right?
Absolutely, yes. That's my plan. And we have some really wonderfully sponsored products here. You know, we got a lot of good stuff on the wall. A lot of stuff with sugar in it though, right? One of the difficulties that we run into when we're doing the Barista Championships is you always want to use ingredients, and a lot of times, I mean, we came from this place in the United States especially, where everything gets kind of sweetened and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. So one of the struggles that you have is taking something that may be inherently sweet to begin with, say chocolate or, you know, even like,
like caramel, things like that.
Yeah, caramel. I've used ice cream before and all kinds of different things. And it's inherently sweet. And so you have to start balancing that. Some people will take bitter ingredients and ingredients that are not necessarily sweet to kind of try and balance it. There's also a level of restraint. You can still get flavor, and you want some sweetness, obviously, but you have to show restraint, and you have to show something that's going to give balance, and it's going to also, once again, highlight that espresso and bring out more of that espresso experience.
And Connie, you did that this year as well, didn't you, in your finals drink? You used that simple syrup to start with as a base, and then built the drink on top of that.
Yes, yes. And today, this year, what I did was I used basically 3 components for the primary ingredients in my signature drink, and they were honestly fairly simple ingredients, but they were used very purposefully and in a way that combined with a small amount of ingredients to make a major change in the flavor profile of the coffee. That still kept that flavor intact, but also enhanced it. So, with you guys, what do you like? I have 2 coffees today. I have a naturally processed Ethiopian coffee called Nekise. It's really fruity, it's really sweet. It's a really, really tasty coffee. I used this yesterday in our espresso challenge. I also have a coffee from El Salvador. And this one is called La Sintra,
right? Like that.
This is actually roasted in Korea, and it's got a slightly darker roast profile for it, so it has a little bit more body, and the acidity is a little bit more tamed, but it still has that intact, and so it's actually a really, really interesting and really nice coffee as well. So my idea today is kind of to say maybe I'll make both of these coffees for you, and maybe I'll make a few different drinks. Now, I got a question for you. Do you like gelato? Right? I think maybe because we're in this nice hall here, maybe we should utilize some gelato from one of our vendors over here. Yeah? That good? We're going to go on a field trip. No, I'm just messing with you. Amy, can you get me some gelato? Maybe something kind of sweet, neutral, maybe a cookie. Okay, that'd be perfect. All right. While she does that,
Amy Ball, she's going to obtain some gelato for you. I don't think this has ever been done before.
No, absolutely not. And this is one of the things. This isn't WBC, so I get a little bit of room. And just to explain to you, I can't use a person as a prop to go and do something for me or to interact with. That's against the rules, actually. But in this case, maybe we can have a little fun with it. Right?
It was really interesting yesterday that somebody was playing with the temperature of the machine and dropping it down. Can't do that in competition, but it was just like, I want to do this, you know, and this is a great opportunity, again, to do that.
And it's a way to showcase some of our expertise and what we're doing that we can't necessarily put into the barista competitions as well. So I think that El Salvador coffee is going to go really, really well with the gelato. Because of that slightly darker roast, you get a little bit more of a bitter tone that comes through, and I think that sweetness from the cream, or not really the cream, but the dairy that's in there is actually going to get really enhanced by the addition of it. And this is something that we look at cappuccinos. When we make our cappuccinos, a lot of times people will use a cappuccino coffee or a milk coffee. And that's because some of those darker tones and those heavier flavors that are in there tend to get actually enhanced by the addition of milk. And so it's a really, really good use of that particular flavor component of that coffee. While she's getting that gelato, let's talk about this Nikise, though.
There we go.
Okay. Look at that. She's fast. It's cool.
Do you guys have enough cappuccino cups?
I do. I have 4.
Fantastic.
Is that all I need? Right? Well, she's really fast. So now once again, you know. Oh yeah.
Pete, was this just an excuse to eat some gelato?
Yeah, I'm actually getting one of these for
hungry?
myself. Well, since she's so fast, we're going to go ahead and do that one first. How about that? Okay, so now we have kind of a biscotti cookie, however you want to say it, based gelato. It's sweet, it's kind of caramely, it's got a little bit of kind of a cocoa note to it. Really tasty. You want to taste it? Yeah? Okay. Luckily, I brought spoons.
I think in the interests of us as well, I think we should definitely try that and make sure that it's okay for you.
That's a good idea.
Make sure we've got the right quality.
Now, let's take that, our ice cream, as an ingredient. Yeah. Now our espresso is going to have some dark cocoa. It's going to have some orange notes, and it's also going to have a little bit of a floral characteristic to it as well. I personally think I'm going to use one ingredient regardless of what you like, okay? And what that is I want some perfumey essence, kind of like that floral note that I'm talking about in that espresso. So I have some Earl Grey tea here, and I'm actually going to use it in a way that you may not expect. I'm not actually going to put Earl Grey tea into your drink, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as an essence, and that perfumey essence in your cup. So it's actually going to sit in here, and it's going to kind of affect the coating in that cup, and then I'm going to take it out. Because what I want is I want that essence of the bergamot that's in there to enhance it, but I don't want to put a bunch of tea in your drink, right? So this is my one ingredient that I'm going to use. Now the ice cream, obviously, it's kind of a mutual decision, right? Right? Okay. Now, I'm going to make the espresso shots, and we need one more thing. I really want to put an acid in this to kind of mirror and match that orange note that I was telling you about. So I've got some peach, I've got some lemon, I've got some mango passion fruit. What do you think? What do you think sounds good? Mango, peach, passion fruit. Mango and passion fruit are together. Is that okay? Okay. Peach, mango, passion fruit. Excellent. I've got peach, and I'm crafty. I've got mango passion fruit. Now this is a smoothie base. This is not a normal ingredient that you're going to put into a drink, right? But once again, restraint is the key. Now, I will tell you that this is going to be a sweeter drink because of the gelato that we're putting into it. However, those heavier tones from the espresso and this bergamot essence that's coming from this Earl Grey tea is going to balance that out quite a bit. So, now then. These. So, my other spoons here. What we're going to do. Another part of our restraint here is we got quite a bit of gelato there, but we're not going to use it all, right? We're just going to use a little bit here. And we're going to try to be as consistent as possible. Now, in a barista championship, we have all these things set, measured, pre-weighed, everything else. And, you know, if you're doing something like this, this is something that I love to do in the cafe, is talk to people, ask what they like, and see, you know, what can we do to kind of fit this in and not just make an excuse to use it, but make it make sense with our coffee. And so, because of that, we're going to use these ingredients. Now, little peach. We're also just using very small amounts. And that's because, once again, don't want to overpower it. I was going to say, the idea is that, you know, in our cafe, if we're doing something like this and we're talking to people and we're asking what they like, I don't have this all pre-staged and pre-made for you. You don't have all these things unless you have a drink that is in that way, which Peter was talking about, bartenders having a signature. And I really like that. I really like having a signature, but I also like the flexibility of being able to make a drink like this. Okay? So I'm going to go pull some shots here, and we'll put this together, and we'll get you the first drink you're going to taste here. All right?
All right, so Pete has improvised a drink based on ingredients that are available to him only within the nearest few hundred yards from here, right?
Yeah, that's right. I like local. I like local, Peter.
Yeah, this is local cuisine,
yes.
Sort of at the convention center. This is all local food to the convention center. So we've got gelato from the gelato booth just down the way. We've got some of these Sweetbird products, smoothie mixes that are essentially just fruit purees that he's using in the mix, and we'll see how this is going to come together.
It's really interesting, kind of when you go on a journey building a signature drink, and all of a sudden, within a few moments, Pete knew where he wanted to go. It was.
It's interesting because he was as he was talking about sort of underscoring some of the notes of the characteristic. I know you and I have both experienced coffees that have a tea-like characteristic.
Sure.
Maybe evoking a tea like Earl Grey, which has this bergamot oil in it. That's a citrus oil, of course, reminding us of coffees from Ethiopia. And then these fruit notes, it's not uncommon at all for coffees to have fruit notes, particularly natural coffees. We'll see which coffee Pete chose to use in this course.
Okay. So in this course, we have that El Salvador coffee, right? Go ahead and give it a swirl. You got a nice lot of space in the cup there. I also pulled these shots a little bit shorter than I normally would for a balanced shot because I wanted a little bit of an under extraction on this coffee. And the reason being is because we're going to get a little bit more of this kind of, this almost to the point of sour acidity, but not quite there. It's just developed enough that you're going to get the sweetness out of this coffee too. Go ahead and give it a swirl and give it a taste. And let me know what you think. I'll make you something else if you don't like it. I swear. Yes.
Okay, one of the judges has handed me this drink. What did you think?
I really like the balance that comes out, and the essence of the bergamot is really present in the aftertaste.
Right, you can really smell the aromatics of the of the bergamot. And that was a pronounced passion fruit flavor, and then the understory of bitterness from the coffee.
It's really lovely how the temperature of the gelato has also cooled that down and changed that espresso perception and highlighted that acidity coming through. It's,
yes, this is the mango one. What did you think?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's really balanced. It's perfect.
Perfect. Well, lots of balance. That's a word that we keep hearing, is this idea of balance. I myself taste layers of creaminess and fruitiness with that bitterness from the coffee on the bottom.
Yeah, no, there's a really lovely, not in a bad way at all, but a lovely bitterness on the end and that coffee flavour coming through, but a really interesting acidity too.
Of course, the challenge is one of the at the barista competition level. Of course, one of the rules is that it has to express synergy between the espresso taste and the other ingredients taste. And if any one ingredient, including the espresso, overpowers any of the other, then it can lose points.
Sure. But it was interesting that all of our judges here have thought that it was balanced, so that's obviously has a synergy of those ingredients come together.
A closely related word, synergy to balance. All right, Pete, what are you working on now?
Okay, now we're working on our second coffee here. And what I've got is, because we just used that bergamot, right, as an essence, this time I really like the idea of playing with flavors that are not present in the coffee, right? So this first round, what we did is we took flavors that are in the coffee and we kind of mirrored it, and we kind of used flavors that are similar but not quite exactly the same, right? But very, very similar. This time, what I want to do is I want to use flavors that, some flavors that exist, and I want to use some flavors that are complementary to what the coffee is, right? Now, the second coffee that we have is an Ethiopian Nikise, right? And this is a naturally processed coffee, so it's got a lot of berries in it. And I don't want to put any berries into this coffee, all right? I don't want to add any more fruit to this guy. But what it does have is it has a nice cocoa, dark chocolate like finish and flavor, an undertone to it. I do want to put a little bit of chocolate in it because I want to expand on that just a little bit. But I want to go back to the roots of this coffee, because before this coffee got processed as a natural coffee where the fruit dried onto the outside of the seed, it had another characteristic to it, and it tends to have another characteristic to it very, very commonly. And that is that bergamot note we were talking about, right? As a washed coffee, this coffee comes through much more with bergamot. So now what I want to do is I want to play with some of those flavors that come from it as a washed coffee, but with the coffee being a natural. Bring a little bit more of that back into it that gets kind of masked by that fruit that comes through in the natural process, right? And I need to add just a little bit of sweetness. So I need to find something that's going to be sweet to go with this guy. What do you think? Sugar? What's that? Vanilla? If I have vanilla, I'll see if I can find it. Now, I will say this coffee is very sweet on its own.
Not only do we have vanilla or French vanilla.
Oh my goodness. Let's go with vanilla. Vanilla sounds good. Is that good for everybody? I'm just going to put a little bit of vanilla in there. It's going to bring a little bit more of that floral essence. Match that bergamot pretty well, actually. Okay? Now my cups are over here because you guys were drinking that one and I set all this up. But I'll show you. I'm going to put just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit in there.
So Pete, how have you generally in barista competition scored with your signature drinks? Is it something you've been fairly, has it improved? Have you got better? Have you kind of
I'd say it's improved. Yeah. Generally speaking, I've done pretty well with signature drinks because like I said at the beginning, I think it should taste really good. It should be a tasty drink. However, there have been a couple times I've had signature drinks that didn't maybe score quite so well. You know, it wasn't quite as focused on the coffee. Certain years I was, definitely playing more with bacon and other ingredients as opposed to looking at the flavors of the coffee, which was really tasty, but it didn't really do
bacon?
Yeah.
Tell us about the bacon one.
The bacon one was 2010. I had a coffee from Kona, and it was a really, really good coffee. This was what I had done is the first time I had done a layering technique where I took two coffees and I layered one on top of the other. I had a coffee from Maui, which is called a mocha. It's extremely small bean coffee, and it's very dense as well. And that had a very different characteristic to it in grinding and extracting than the rest of the coffee I was using, which was from Kona, which tends to be a lot softer and lighter. Now, the Kona coffees that I had 3 different processes. Remember, this is the year that Mike Phillips won the WBC with 3 different processes of the same coffee from Costa Rica, which is really interesting. We were all kind of moving in that direction. I just didn't have it quite right, you know. So I separated those and I layered them, and I made this really, I thought it was just a fantastic tasting coffee. But unfortunately, my signature drink was delicious. It also had ice cream in it, right? Okay. So it was my year of gluttony in order to say, I just want to make something that tastes good, and maybe a little too far in that direction. Not giving justice to the coffee, because then, you know, what do? You try and say, well, yeah, you know, it's the texture is kind of oily and interestingly smooth, just like that bacon is, you know, and that didn't really make sense, you know, it didn't really work. So what I did is I actually took bacon and I soaked it in maple syrup and sea salt. I cooked it in butter and candied it, and so I caramelized the outside of it and topped it with chocolate. And then I paired it with vanilla Haagen-Dazs and more maple syrup with the espresso as an affogato. And like I say, very, very decadent, not so good on the signature drink points, right? Although it scored well enough, but you know.
And Pete was talking about that about Kona. You lived in Hawaii for a little while,
yes.
The only coffee producing part of the USA. Has that had an influence on signature drinks in the past, being exposed to the coffee producing like that you have been there?
Oh, for me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, in 2011, here you go, guys. This is bergamot, vanilla, chocolate, and Nikise espresso. Okay? Enjoy.
So bergamot, vanilla, walk us through this construction.
Yes.
You talked about it a little bit, but you've got the Nikise espresso, which is a natural, so it's got that pronounced fruit flavor. I tasted strawberry when I tasted it before, so something like that. It
seems to cross between strawberry, blackberry, blueberry, raspberry, kind of depending on the range of where your extraction goes.
Which is intrinsic to the coffee itself. Then on top of that, you put some chocolate.
Chocolate, which is a characteristic that comes out of it. A lot of times when this coffee gets roasted, and the degree that it's at right now, it definitely has a nice cocoa chocolate finish and body to it. The bergamot is back there. Once again, this is kind of giving an homage to where this coffee started at before it was processed as a natural coffee.
Right.
The idea being that this is also something that will go well with those flavors that are in the coffee.
And then some vanilla.
And some vanilla, because
we wanted also floral, right?
We wanted some sweetness, but that actually was a great choice because it added some floral notes.
Right. What do you think?
I think you can judge by my empty cup that it's really delicious. As I can tell, for the first drink, it was very sweet on the smell, and I was kind of afraid because I don't like sweet too much in the coffee, but the taste was really smooth, and apricot was standing out, I think, very well there. And for this one, it's so floral, and bergamot is actually it's one of my favorite like side tastes to coffee, and you score it very well.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
One thing I noticed is that you were extremely judicious in the use of the syrup.
Yes.
Holding way, 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 way back.
Well, and the nature of our signature drinks in the competition is we want a large portion of the flavor of that coffee to come through, and we want other flavors to accent what that coffee is. And in order to do that, especially with something that's sweet, like I said, or something that's very floral, is that you don't want to use very much of it because that will overpower the coffee very quickly.
Very good. Well, overall, judges, a positive experience? All right, very good.
Good.
Well, thank you very much, judges, for your participation. I think we might have a little gift for each of you. And Pete, thank you very much for that performance. That was awesome. Shall we go and talk on the couch a little bit about some of these things?
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, judges.
And it's time for ice cream.